In the legal battles between Tesla and families that are upset about autopilot deaths, there's been a big victory, the first really big victory. What does it mean? Is this going to stop the tide of lawsuits? Does it change anything? That's what we're going to discuss. I'm Brian. Welcome to My Tesla Weekend. So I am joined by Herbert, the amazing Herbert from Brighter with Herbert, who makes us brighter. He's got some of the best viewers in the business, and I love reading through the comments on his channel, and I love reading through the comments on my channel, and it works because our audiences are bright, and it's wonderful. Herbert, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. Love it. Great intro.
Oh, hey, man, I've done a couple.
You do this for a living.
So it's not, a funny story. It's not a happy story. There is no happy ending. It's tragic all around. There have been a number of cases where consumers placed undue confidence in what is clearly labeled as a level 2 system with bad results. The first case was a few years back. There was a lawsuit that's still in the works for a driver in Florida who lost the top of his car underneath a tractor trailer. That's still ongoing. More recently, in April, there was a case where a driver hit a curb on autopilot and apparently broke her jaw, knocked a couple teeth out, and suffered permanent nerve damage. I can only assume that driver also wasn't wearing a seatbelt, because that doesn't strike me as the kind of accident that you have from hitting a curb. I could be mistaken. But this one that just came out this week was that it was a death, and the vehicle was burned to the point where the black box was not recoverable. We do know that the driver apparently had alcohol in his system. We don't know how much, because as I understand it, they don't do a blood alcohol content test on an autopsy. They do a full drug panel toxicology screen with binary results, present or not present, and the answer was present. Jury found in favor of Tesla 9-3. There is no award. The same no award for the woman who hit the curb. The April one was not precedent setting. This one appears that it will be, that this is a precedent, that you are in control of your vehicle. What do you make of it?
I don't know. Did you see what Elon's reply was?
I did not. What was that?
Yeah, it came out this morning. He said the irony is that if they were using autopilot, this accident wouldn't have happened. So the irony, of course, was they sued Tesla saying that it's autopilot, and the jury found that it wasn't. And this is going to happen over and over and over again. But the whole point of autopilot is to help make it safer. 400,000 people are dying, right, every single year on motor vehicle accidents in the U.S. And so, that is a low bar to beat. There will be accidents with autopilot and full self-driving, but it's supposed to be, the whole point is that it's less. So if you point out that one accident that happened here and that one over there, what are you doing? You are basically going to try to stop the development of robotaxi or, right, safer driving, or even just an advanced ADAS, right, safety system. And you are killing people if you do anything actively trying to stop this, because it is today safer now. And so, maybe a few years ago when the argument was, it's going to kill so many people if you test this out the way you're testing it out, but it hasn't been the case. There will be cases like this. So at this point, I'm pretty convinced that if you try to make a lawsuit like this with the purpose of trying to discredit the development of these technologies, you're liable for the deaths that are continuing to occur every single year. Just massive numbers of people dying because of cars that don't have advanced ADAS or autopilot.
And that's true. The bottom line is we can see the safety stats. All cars, high accident rate. Cars with these safety features, lower accidents. Cars using these safety features with human supervision, the safest by far. It helps that there's forward collision warning. It helps that there's great traction control and good stopping and quality tires. All that helps. But those are, just one factor. Those aren't always the case. And Tesla does take an all of the above approach. It's worth noting that what the jury found was that there was nothing about autopilot that made it unsafe. So even if it had been used, even if it was used, because it is not known if it was in use or not, it would not have been autopilot's fault. Because,
Right.
and there are still to this day people who say, well, they should call it something else because it's confusing. Autopilot's a term that's been used in aviation for over 100 years. It doesn't mean go to sleep. It means you don't have to do 100% of the work. It's a well-established term. Whether an individual knows what it means or not is a completely separate matter. You know, the Honda calls theirs, I think, co-pilot. Different companies have different names for it. To me, none of them are necessarily more or less misleading. It doesn't really matter in that regard. And I would agree with you that these people who are telling you not to use it have blood on their hands. The people who are saying, I didn't sign up to be part of this experiment. My friend, you're already part of an experiment. And if you don't want the safest system possible in use, I mean, I don't even know how to explain the stupidity that goes into thinking that. Now, early on, before autopilot was widely in circulation, before FSD was really even a thing, there was the big claim, oh, this is great, but as soon as the first person dies, there'll be a lawsuit and it'll be over. Right. It'll be dead before it got started. What was your thoughts on that at the time? Do you remember?
I mean, it makes sense, and I'm not going to discount that could happen, right? Because it's anything that captures the society and the imagination of consumers, and it could go wildfire, right? It can take over regardless of what, how big of an event it was, how real it was, all that. The stats don't matter. What matters is somebody died. So it could definitely do that. I think that I'm hoping that, it's been now several years, right? We have 500,000 people doing full self-driving beta, by the way, and so it's no longer, and not just Tesla now. Many other car companies are now claiming that their autopilot, which is on the highways, only turned on when it's 40 miles per hour, things like that, it's starting to be used more and more, not just by Tesla. So I think at this point, I think one or two accidents won't derail. You just saw the Cruise scenario where they were not the one to hit the person, the pedestrian. A human driver killed this person, or I didn't kill it, but they hit this person. But the Cruise ran over it and then even backed out and even tried to move several hundred feet, apparently, without realizing that there was, something underneath. That came out. It didn't really make a big deal, right? Cruise had to stop because the authorities said they had to stop, but the consumers, the society didn't go and say, robotaxis are evil, they should stop. So
I only saw a handful of those sentiments of people saying, stop all of this, stop it all at once. The overwhelming majority were able to look at the facts of the case and say, this is a tragic accident, but an accident nonetheless. And the reason Cruise was forced to stop testing in California was not because they hit a person. It was not because they dragged a person. It's because apparently someone on their team decided to omit that portion of the clip to investigators where it showed, so it was a very much a human fault to make the decision to try and cover their tracks. Yes.
Yeah, but GM decided to suspend all the Cruise operations, not just in San Francisco, but all cities everywhere. And there could be a couple reasons why they did that, right? One is because they're concerned that if this accident occurred, if another accident like this occurs, then maybe there's this theme, this regular thing that's happening with our system. It could be a brand damage. But I think the real reason why they did that was because they're losing so much money on the Cruise. They use this as the excuse to stop that. As you saw, they backed away from so many plans recently. They're burning cash. They're burning, their issues with electric vehicles and also robotaxi. And so I think that they stopped it for that reason. But once one happens, okay. But if it happens again and again, that's a different story.
You've got a real problem. And by the way, their cash burn is something like $7 million a day, which is, for those unfamiliar with money, a lot. That's a big number. Unfortunate. Unfortunate. I was rooting for Cruise, of course. I'm still rooting for Waymo. I'm rooting for all of it because it will fundamentally change our lives and make them better. And it's true that we managed to rack up enough safe miles to get a large enough data set before the first fatality occurred to have a clearer understanding. The reason I believe Elon is under the impression that autopilot was not engaged was because the eyewitness accounts of the driver's behavior behind the wheel, the driving pattern of the vehicle did not match what you would expect from autopilot. He veered off the road, which is not something autopilot was known to do at the time, certainly. And there are a lot of critics and a lot of skeptics, but who knows, man. So in the comments, what did we miss? What do we misunderstand? Check out Brighter with Herbert. He's doing some great work over there. And yeah, let us know what we missed, and stay tuned, stay juicy, and I can't wait to hear from you clever robots on the next one.